Right, we're nearly there, going live on YouTube. And I've got the right link this time. Okay, right, let's get on with this stuff. So welcome. Tuesday, just after 2 p.m. It's question time with Dill, the party wall guy, and welcome to the show. Obviously missed you guys last week. Just quick explanation. I pressed the wrong button on the Zoom meeting. I did have a Zoom meeting, but not with the current audience. So thank you for turning up. As you probably know, it's my usual fluffing up of technology. I occasionally do it just to keep myself on my toes. We are live on YouTube, and all our viewers on YouTube, I'm going to unfortunately repeat what we repeated last week, most of the same content, because all the people on Zoom missed out. But as they say, don't work with children and animals, and they should probably add in technology to that famous show business saying, not that we're involved in show business. But it's great to have everybody back, and I think I've got the right button this time. I've got one of our regulars on, so thank you for attending. I'm just going to run through the content we ran through last week. Let's have a quick go. I've got to try and leave on time today as well. So unfortunately, we're going to cut it quite close. So quick introduction. My name's Dill Gujral. I'm the Chief Party Wall Surveyor at 1996 Party Wall. And we do what it says on the tin. We're specialist party wall surveyors. We have this half an hour or so show every Tuesday, 2 p.m. just to go through party wall questions, frequently asked questions, and try and help you with your party wall issues. So let's make a start. This is a question and answer show, so keep your questions coming in. And it's questions that make the show, basically. If you put them into your Zoom, I've got it on this screen. So, and if you're on YouTube, if you put your questions in, we are live on YouTube as well. And let's get on with it. Right. So, special announcement, we're looking for architects to come on board, ask their party wall questions. Always happy, if you know any architects who'd like to come and ask their own party wall questions, straighten out some of the misconceptions or help their clients to deal with the party wall matters. Always happy to have you guys on board. And let's see if we can make it even more interesting than the usual format. So I think one of our regulars are on. If you can send us your questions, I'll endeavor to answer it. So I went through something interesting last week. Yep, questions are coming on board. Let me turn this phone thing off. Right. So something I went through last week, and it's driven by, I had a conversation going back a week or so. As a party wall surveyor, you'll get difficult questions. And these are the questions I think in the property space, nobody's actually answering or passing on to people doing, and this applies largely to people doing residential lofts and rear extensions. So where you've got householders doing lofts and rear extensions, possibly taking chimneys out, no one's bringing the party wall aspect to their attention. They don't actually know what they're doing. Nobody wants to have a difficult conversation. So if you're an architect and you don't want to have the difficult conversation, we're quite happy to have that. Well, we're not happy about it, but it's one of our duties. It's the thing we do. So these are the difficult questions. And as a party wall surveyor, firstly, as a party wall surveyor, you need to bring these out. And secondly, as a property professional, you need to make the homeowner who's doing their first extension aware of these issues. So the first question to ask, if you're a homeowner doing party wall stuff and you don't know a good party wall surveyor from a bad party wall surveyor, and if you're a party wall surveyor, you should also bring these issues out. How are notices served? So you need to make them understand the process for serving party wall notices. And the biggest question that follows on from service of party wall notices, what happens if neighbours do not reply? Part of the reason for that question comes from the fact that the government guidance on party wall and I'll come to the booklet slightly later on. The Government Guidance on the Party Wall Act actually leaves this element out. It was written in 2002. It's been refreshed, but all they've done is change the cover from red to white, haven't rewritten any of the content. They totally missed this question out. This is the reason for the confusion everybody gets into. There's no reference to the tenfold process. And it doesn't matter how many times you explain it to the same person, unless they've been through the process, they're not going to understand it. So I'm going to have a go at explaining it again. Hopefully you can watch this video if you're a homeowner, but you need to understand the tenfold process. Okay. The other element that's difficult to tackle, difficult to understand, and difficult for homeowners to get their head around, what are the costs? So as party wall surveyors, we can give our costs, whether it's on an hourly basis or a fixed fee basis, for the elements that we're going to get involved in. So serving notices, doing schedules of condition, or doing an award as an agreed surveyor. The cost we can't really give to homeowners is the cost for the adjoining owner surveyor, because that's decided under a slightly different process, and it's not a fixed fee, and all you can do is give an indication. So if someone who's acting as a party wall surveyor doesn't give you the indication, doesn't give you the bad news that it's going to be, could potentially be significant, they're not doing their job properly, and they don't really understand what goes on. They haven't had enough experience, in my view. Always happy to have feedback on this. And the fourth difficult question is the timescale. So the timescale issue comes around from, I guess it's part of it's due to the notices. So Section 6 notices will state a 1 month notice period. Section 2, same with the one will park aside. Section 1 will park aside for the moment. Section 2, 3 notices will state 2 months. However, practical experience on the ground, from our point of view, 12 to 13 years I've been doing this, you can get a party wall award process completed, possibly in a week, depending on your adjoining owners, your neighbor's reaction. It could take 3 months, and very rarely it could get totally out of control. And I've actually only heard of 2 instances. One was where they've actually done pre-notification damage, so it's not really a proper party wall process. And the other occasion was, it's actually not it's not one of our jobs. It was some other surveyor's job. We were talking about it on a forum, and it involves asbestos being next door. So the mitigating strategy would have been to redesign their works to allow for that, or wait, because there was an elderly couple and the joining owners were just wanted this elderly couple, who unfortunately one of them had cancer, just to pass the end of life in their home that they currently were, and they were happy for the adjoining owners to do the works. But the building owners were developers. They'd already pre-ordered the kitchen, and they didn't want to wait. So you can get the odd spanner in the works, but by and large, 1 week to 3 month timescale is quite a reasonable guess. And also it's a reasonable indication, and most of 99.9% of party wall jobs should be captured by that timescale. Important thing to understand here is you need to indicate to the building owners that this is a variable process, and unfortunately in these days, in the modern environment where everybody wants certainty, you can give them an indication, you can give them the parameters, but you can't give them a definite answer till you get to the end. Not how people are used to dealing with life. You know, everyone's used to having outs. It's a bit like sat nav. You'll go on there, they'll give you indication when you're going to reach, but you can always have delays. And it's better to manage people's expectations, especially building owners, saying, look, there is the possibility of this, and this could happen. So it's just general advice. Happy to have some feedback on it. Moving on. So why undertake the party wall process? And I keep reiterating this because it's quite important. Firstly, it's the law. First and lastly, it's the law. Next point, it is the building owner's responsibility. It's not the architects, not the builders. It's not even the party wall surveyor's responsibility, actually. It's the building owner's responsibility to ensure the party wall process is carried out. A schedule of condition survey protects a building owner from false and malicious claims. So don't like it, don't understand the cost implications, building owners don't want to have these costs, but it's part of the build process. And it's part of the reason for the act, although strictly speaking, it may or may not be part of the act. It's a process whereby building owners can protect themselves from false and malicious claims. Next element, project may be stopped in midstream. So if you try and start off party wall act and not do the process, you may well end up getting your project stopped midstream. And for party wall surveyors, it's bad. For you as a project owner trying to do something in midstream, it's even worse. So don't do it. You know, the advice you should give is, as a party wall professional, and it's not fee driven, it's in the interest of the building owner to get it done before. And like I said, it's cheaper to do it before you start the building works. Also, the more time you leave before starting building work, and this goes back to the previous point of 1 to 3 months, it may be possible to negotiate adjoining owners' surveyors' fees to a larger extent if you've got time. But if you're being pushed for time, I have a feeling they use that element to up their fees and try and get away with more fees than they would do otherwise. Personal experience, might get in trouble for that, actually. And last point, prevent legal action. So if you're going to try and do building works without doing the party wall process, you could run into legal action. That's quite very expensive, and then you're going to have to end up doing the process anyway. So why not get it done properly, stitch in time and so forth. And last of all, just to complete the loop, it is the law. So don't go without it. Got some questions coming in. Let's have a look at the questions. Dill, do outbuildings require party wall agreement? Good question. They could do, and it all depends upon. Let's see what's on the slides here. Right, so this is a building owner's perspective. I've thought about adding party wall outbuildings on this, and it all depends on Section 6. It's probably Section 6 notice. If there's an existing outbuilding or existing building within that outbuilding's distance, 3 meters is usually the distance. If you're going to have an outbuilding with a basement, then I'm guessing party wall issues are the least of your problems. But you could potentially, it's a great idea, have a depending on the slope of your garden, how big your garden is. If you've got one of these massive houses, thought it'd be an interesting project is to build an outbuilding with a basement. Look really cool. But sorry, that could potentially go into 6 meters. So depends what you've got around where you're going to build your outbuilding is the answer. And I might have to do a future session on that, so keep reminding me. Can you discuss Section 12.1? Oh, right. Okay, so Section 12.1. Actually, I'm going to have a look at the LinkedIn because one of our regulars has sent me a question here, and I was a bit caught up on something. Okay, let me see. Yeah, could you, regarding Section 12.1, if you can type your question in, I'll have a go at answering it. I might have to come back to you on that. Let's have a look. Do you have any material on Section 12.1? Security of expenses. I need to know all there is to know about this section on the Party Wall Act, when to apply, how to apply it, and everything there is to know about it. Reading articles that surveyors are getting done for negligence. I do not want to be done for negligence. How do you also calculate the security of expenses? Where's the money held? Is it in escrow? But with who exactly, and surveyors or a solicitor? Right. So section 12.1 refers to security of expenses. My understanding is it is for the adjoining owner to request security of expenses. It's not for you as a surveyor to do so. Normal circumstances, from my understanding, for security of expenses, and I'm just dealing with something of this actually. First point, if the building owner's property is owned by a limited company. Sorry, bit of background. Security of expenses, adjoining owner can ask for security of expenses if they feel some part of the work is going to get left undone that's going to affect their property. So, for example, if they're demolishing part of a party wall structure, the building owner might run out of money and not finish off. The security of expenses will act as a buffer to make sure that work's completed. So if they're going to demolish a wall in order to rebuild it, but don't get around to rebuilding it, for example, the adjoining owner could request a security of expenses for rebuilding that wall. It's only to do with that rebuilding. They can't ask for it in terms of damage because the damage process is covered by the Party Wall Act. It's for the adjoining owner to request, and the surveyors moderate the amount or reach an amount. The amount should be in level with the cost of just doing that work, so the adjoining owner's property is not affected. It's not about the damage, so that's a different process. The other point is it's decided by the surveyors, but largely where the building owner's property is owned by a limited company, there's more requirement. There's more of an emphasis for a security of expenses. If the building owners can show wherewithal and financial support to cover security of expenses, there is an argument for not having security of expenses. It's quite an in-depth, detailed subject. And the other point is, particularly if the property is owned by an overseas company, i.e. the adjoining owner may have difficulty in being able to reclaim that company. In other words, it gets flipped onto somebody else, sold, and they've messed the project up. So it depends on a number of factors. I think it's going to be really complex. So what are the other questions? Okay. Where's the money held? So the money is held in a neutral third party, usually escrow account. I've got agreement between the parties for the security of expenses to be held by solicitors in their client accounts. There is a charge for that. Currently, I believe solicitors charging about 300 plus VAT, and another famous escrow account holder is charging 400 plus VAT. Happy to pass you the details if you contact me directly. And who pays for the charges? It would be the building owner. Usually they're quite unnecessarily on normal rear extensions or loft conversion projects. When you're getting into stuff like basements or a bit more intricate works, slightly different, where you're demolishing party structures, leaving the adjoining owner's building at risk of possible exposure to weather and so forth, there's an argument for that. So it is a complex issue, need to look at it, and it depends project by project. I would say if you've got a standard loft or a rear extension, I would decline the request for security of expenses because it's covered by normal damage scenarios. So hopefully that sort of answers your question to a certain extent. If you are sporting a chimney stack with a steel beam, which areas should you take pictures for a schedule of condition? What I mean by that is the internal images to be taken, or do you think out of the box and take images externally as well? So if you're moving a chimney, do I think out of the box? I try, but I'm not sure how much thinking goes on sometimes. That's not just with me, that's with everybody in this current world. Sorry. I'll refrain from making jokes and not give them my day job. Chimney breast in the loft. Okay, so normal standard practice for us doing a survey on the chimney breast when it's being taken out, and the chimney breast is the element of the chimney below the roof line. We always do, if it's the upstairs, assuming that both rooms are being taken out. So we're doing a survey on the other side. We would do the downstairs room, upstairs room, and in the loft. The standard practice for us, because the adjoining owner's loft side can be affected. So that, and we also do external photographs of rear, front and back rear. Just gives us more evidence, and all we're doing is gathering evidence. And I know we overdo it as a company, but it's better to have more than less. So that's just a personal view. Some companies may not do that, but that's their call, and that's for them to deal with. I've also heard that demolition now falls within Party Wall Act, whereas it wasn't previously considered. Am I correct in saying so? Dill, how would a clause be drafted in the award? So when we're talking about demolition, does it come under a section number? Are you demolishing a party wall structure? So taking out the chimneys, if you're knocking down a building and you're not. So from my understanding of the question, I'm going to see if we'll be reaching out to section there as it comes across in the future. Okay, so thank you very much. Feel free to reach out. A demolition. So if you're demolishing a building, the principal party wall surveyors need to watch out for here is stick to the Party Wall Act. If there's no notice, there's no act. If the building owner does not issue a notice, then you cannot get involved. You'll become ultra virus, you'll go beyond your jurisdiction, and you'll get yourself in trouble with court. So the Party Wall Act only starts when the building owner serves a notice. No notice, no act. They don't issue the notice, you cannot get involved. For the adjoining owners to persuade, ask, or potentially take an injunction on the building owners if there's no notice given. That's point one. Point two, if you're demolishing a building, you're not excavating, you're not, from just the common sense view, you're not excavating, you're not demolishing, assuming you're not demolishing a party wall structure, it's not a party wall matter, from my understanding, because you're not doing a notifiable process. Demolitions aren't nice, they're messy, they cause vibrations, they cause noise. But if they're not notifiable, they're not notifiable. So that's my understanding. Always happy to look at cases and further instances. So the picture I got in mind is there was an instance on Hounslow High Street, a famous supermarket had a whole tower block a few years back, and they actually sold it to a property deal. They were demolishing it. There's all sorts of vibrations going on. Unfortunately, I don't think it comes under the Act because they want excavating until they do the excavation. So you've got to separate the two things out. Let's have a look. I think we've got another question. Sorry, demolition works. It was for knocking down and rebuilding an old building. Yeah. So yeah, knocking down, it's not really notifiable. When you're going to do the excavation, yes, that potentially is notifiable, runs into section 6.1, section 6/6(2). And I'm just thinking, looking at this little slide, I might flip it so that look at the works covered by section 6.1 and 2 and 3. So there might be a idea for a different, flipping this slide around and doing it the other way around. Okay. Another question. Let's have a look at this one. Rick's Guidance 7th edition may need to elaborate more than that. Okay, what would you like me to elaborate more than that? If one is building a rear extension and next door neighbor has a brick fence with foundations, would one serve a line of junction notice and a 3-meter notice But do you also need to serve a party structure notice? Right. Interesting question. So if you've got a party fence, let's have a look, brick built fence, right? So what I think they mean is if you've got a wall between the two properties, if that wall has a foundation, definition of a foundation, so I'm doing a project with a shed. So if the shed's got a slab, that's definition of a foundation. Basically, the building itself has something between the structure and the ground. Ground structure that's classified as foundation. So for example, and this is my understanding of sheds, where a wooden shed rests on the ground, no foundation, not a notifiable structure. Where it rests on a concrete slab, that's your foundation, notifiable. And with brick built walls, similar principle. I think you can assume it's got some sort of foundation. So if it's within 3 meters, it's notifiable. Line of junction depends if you're building on the line of junction. Once someone's built on the line of junction and you're popping up next to it, it's built, there's no point doing a line of junction notice. Just in that scenario, it's just an excavation notice. And a party structure notice. Well, you'd only issue a party structure notice on a wall if you're going to demolish, rebuild, or use that wall. So that's the only time I can visualize or I can picture a party structure notice being issued for an external wall. So a party fence wall. The fence is on the adjoining owner's land. Yep. So if it's a wooden fence, it's not a structure, a notifiable structure. Even though it's got posts, I don't believe it's notifiable structure. If it's a brick built wall, then it's a notifiable structure. So that's my interpretation. There'll probably be a law case on it, and it's something will change. But for the moment, that I believe is the right interpretation. Brick pairs with part timber, so notifiable as a, yeah, agreed. So if it's got brick pairs with part timber, so yes, I'd agree that that becomes a notifiable structure. So if it's got brick pairs, you can assume the pairs are then resting on some sort of foundation, and that bit's notifiable, assuming that it's within the distance. So I think we're going into an interesting thing there. So I was going to cover the party wall notice to fit in with the earlier scenario, but just a quick run through. It's important also to indicate to building owners that they only start the process. The process is actually decided by the adjoining owners, and that's stage 2. Hence the thing about costs, timescales, and all of this. It's decided by the adjoining owner's reaction. It's a little bit odd, but if you think about the legal process, that's how sort of legal processes work. And this is more party walls element is a mix of building construction and legal. So that this is why the interaction of the two issues. It's actually more legal than surveying. So party structure notice will also be served. Well, a party structure note, sorry, going back to the brick pairs, party wall structure is only served if you're doing something to that wall. If that wall is just there, it's on the adjoining owner's land, then you wouldn't serve the notice, because not a party structure notice, because you're not doing anything to the wall. If part of the boundary is angled at 45 degrees and the building owner's wall is starting on the line of junction, but then heads away from the line of junction, would section 1 apply? Yes, section 1 would apply, and might have to do some illustrations on this. Imagine if you've got a wall that's at an angle, starts on your building, so that's party fence wall, it's a party structure, and then there's a gap between that wall and your legal boundary. You would have to issue a line of junction notice, also excavation. So hopefully that adds some understanding to that. As we never had a session last week, will you add time on this today? Right. afraid not today. I might add some time on next week. So give you time in lieu, as they say. I've got another appointment that I need to run into, literally. So basic terms of the Act, I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to have to go through this next week. Again, we had some really interesting questions. So this is what we're going to look at next week, just to connect up the conversation that the building owners need to understand. Here I'm talking about residential building owners, because under law, consumers are more protected than commercial guys. So if they haven't been through the process, they don't understand it. It's sort of our duty to help them understand this. Is it possible that the foundations near a new wall may need to be capped during works of this pier and then possibly party structure? I doubt very much. Sorry, technical question. This is where if you're digging on your land, the foundation shouldn't be coming across. What happens if the foundations come across? So having a discussion with another colleague of mine in a different practice this morning, that can get really interesting. So by interesting, I mean complex. So next week, I'm going to go through all this stuff again next week. Basically, government booklet, and this is the reason why people don't understand the 10-4 process. They get this off the internet. It misses out on the 10-4 process. It misses out on the question, what happens if my neighbours don't respond? And it also misses out on the guidance in terms of timescales and costs. Apart from that, it's a really good booklet, actually. It explains stuff in really good detail. For everybody that's watching, and I'm going to try and get these onto YouTube linked. We've created this little booklet. What we're trying to do is fill the gap in, and so you use the two things together. This has got example notices, and it's got a really great checklist of processes to go through to make sure your notices are served, and it takes you right to the end of the 10-4 process. I think yes, it's actually mentioned there. So. I can't claim all the credit, because the chap who actually drafted this checklist spent 25 years in IBM doing checklists or doing processes. So that's why it's such a good process. So no credit for me there. Listen, it's great to have everybody on board. Just a couple of announcements from our fantastic sponsors. Ranjit's not with us today, but everybody knows Ranjit, and he rang me up last week and said, Dil, what's happening? Where are you? I said, I've just finished the session. He said, no, you didn't. You weren't on Zoom. So, and then suddenly the light bulb went off and said, whoops, I think I might have pressed the wrong Zoom link. So quick message from one of our great sponsors, Property Investor News. Great magazine. Please subscribe if you're connected within the property sphere in any way. We're really grateful to these guys for sponsoring our show. I think it's only $7.95. Subscribe, paid subscriber, and you'll get some great back. They'll give you 3 additional back issues. There's a 200th edition, and the book's really good as well. Magazine always has some great information on it. And one of our other sponsors, Sanjay's always too busy designing his kitchens. But if you're doing if you're an architect, you're doing a rear extension project, contact Sanj, get him to send you some drawings. It'll add value to your client's project. Really good way of actually adding value to your client's project without doing too much work. So thank you once again for tuning in. And once again, my apologies for fluffing up the tech last week. I think we're about 6 months in. It's not too bad, you know. Occasionally we have technology problems. So my apologies for missing you guys last week, but the show is on YouTube. Please keep your questions coming in. We're going to go through, got an interesting idea I'm going to discuss next week. I'm going to go through our roadmap for sessions going in the future. Let's see. Dil, party wall, assume a party wall process has started. However, building owner has said to stop the process because they have not had enough. They have not had enough for the project of family grievance. Are the building owner surveyors entitled to fees? Right, okay. So if you issue a notice, the process starts. The building owners and adjoining owners, building owner, adjoining owner surveyors are entitled to some sort of fees. The amount or the quantum, as the educated chaps put it, the quantum is determined by the 10-4 process. So yes, there will be fees involved, and this is one of the reasons where you have to be careful. Do you issue a party wall notice where you haven't had planning? So really great question. There will be some fees involved. My experience, it goes one of two ways. Either the adjoining owner surveyor says, forget it, don't worry about it. We haven't, we'll have to just eat it as part of our costs. Actually, one of three things happens. They say, we'll have to eat it as part of our costs. They try and get the fees from the adjoining surveyor owners. And thirdly, their fees are extortionate and they'll hound the building owner for it. You could theoretically go to the third surveyor. You should actually go to the third surveyor for it, but there is a risk to the building owner. It depends on the amount of fees. So interesting question. Unfortunately, with most things as part. So obviously, I didn't make it quite clear. Yes, so the building owner surveyors and adjoining owner surveyors are entitled to some fees. The amount needs to be determined with any party wall by the surveyors. And if there's a question mark over the surveyor's fees for their work, that can be then taken to the third surveyor as part of the process. And that's probably an idea to do one of those sessions along in the future, how the fees get decided, and the process for that, and the challenging process. So once again, thank you for tuning in. I realize it's not a bad session actually. We'll do another one next week. Keep your questions coming in, and let's try and put this on let's see if we can bring some value. Is that clear? Can you do a session on time? Yeah, I'll try and be on time. I think I was quite close today. Sorry, what do you mean by session on time? Okay. I guess what you're talking about is, so adjoining owners, surveyors' fees are determined by and large on time. There's guidance on how much time it should take. Whether the award is drafted and when works commence. Yes, so it'd be a great session to do, and I have one done. I've done one on the past in terms of timescales. So there's several elements of time. If you send your questions in, I'll have a go at answering them next week. If you can, let's try and see if we can do some more preparation for this and answer your questions. I like to do slides, but it's not always possible. Precious of time. But yeah, we'll have a go at that. So thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week.